Well, the United States, for good or for ill, embraced the idea of privately funding campaigns. This is the core problem. And what we've done is we've outsourced now the funding of campaigns to the tiniest fraction of the 1%. So I estimate for my book is something like 0.05% of Americans give enough money to be the relevant funders so that anybody cares about what they think. So that's
even the 1% is too broad
way
a
high,
category to be meaningful.
0.05%, that's 150,000 Americans. It's about the same number of people as are named Lester in the United States. So this is why in my TED Talk I talk about the United States as Lester land. That's where we live, like this place where this tiny fraction of the 1% exercise this incredible dominance. And that number is falling. That number is going down. Today, there's this spending bill that they've agreed to, and part of that spending bill is a radical increase in the maximum contribution that's going to be permitted to help parties. We're going to reduce the number of relevant funders so that it's this tiny, tiny, tiny fraction. And when you look at it like that, and you think about, for example, Hong Kong, what happened in Hong Kong? Students were told that there was going to be a democracy where first a committee of 1,200 would decide who were the candidates who got to run in the general election. And then everybody in Hong Kong could vote on those candidates. And the students in Hong Kong said, whoa, this isn't a democracy. 0.024% of Hong Kong were going to pick the candidates that the rest of Hong Kong got to vote for. And they went to the streets and they shut down that city. First the kids, literally, there were elementary school students sitting in the streets, and then their parents felt guilty that the kids were doing all the work, so they turned up too. And that was the protest, this protest on the basis of this purely process issue. But you look at the United States and you think, what's the difference between what they were protesting about and what we have? Because we too have this two-stage democracy, where the first stage, a tiny, tiny fraction of the 1%, get to pick the candidates who get to run in the second stage. They pick the candidates by funding their campaigns. That's as much a qualification as any kind of primary would be. Now we have what we could call the green primary in the United States, where 99.95% of Americans are excluded from playing in the green primary.
Wait, so if that's true, why are Americans not waving their pitchforks? That is, Americans aren't behaving remotely like the people of Hong Kong. They appear not to accept that otherwise persuasive sounding analogy. Why is that?
Well, part of it is because I think most Americans don't think there's anything you can do about this problem. We did a poll last year and we found 96% of Americans said it was important to reduce the influence of money in politics. But 91% said it wasn't possible. So, it's like Egypt under Mubarak. Everybody wanted to get rid of Mubarak, but nobody thought it was possible, so you just went on with your life. What else were you going to do? And that's the same sort of thing here. And the Hong Kong kids have not yet learned that that's just the nature of modern democracy. Right? I call this Tweedism. Right? Boss Tweed, Cherry Street philosopher, used to say, I don't care who does the electing as long as I get to do the nominating. That's what the Chinese government were trying to do with the government in Hong Kong. That's what our system does too. The tiniest fraction of the 1% nominates by funding the campaigns, which then we get to pick. And so it's something which we've just come to take for granted and don't think there's anything we can do about it. And they haven't yet learned this is the nature of modern democracy.